So, Elke, I would like to come back to something that you stated on stage today, which is probably something that we feel, everybody, on a daily basis, but you said it out loud, that we are in the middle of brain crisis.
Yes, exactly.
Can you explain a bit?
Yes, I actually already wrote that in my book, Better Minds, in 2015. So the crisis is going on for quite a long time, and it looks like we're not really doing something about it. And what I mean with a brain crisis is that, well, the world is speeding up a lot and we cannot follow anymore. And that's having a huge impact on how we deal with our lives, with our work. And I think we really have to turn the tide and think again about what can give our brain energy and what is draining its energy. And based on that, make solid decisions about the way we work, the way we live, the way we collaborate.
We have quite many signs that our brains are tired, meaning burnout. We are talking about, just epidemics of burnout. We have so many people with mental health problems, and this is probably a complexity of being post-pandemic and all those changes happening at the moment. But what other signs do you take from surrounding people that you see that this is really a problem?
Well, it's indeed mental health is declining, and that was already the case before the pandemic, but now you see, of course, an increase because of all the challenges that people have been facing. But also the ways that people are working nowadays, the people who can have this hybrid context of working partially at home and in the office, we're not doing that in a way that is giving our brain energy. On the contrary. So that's really an important aspect to realize. On top of that, it's the huge amount of information that is coming to our brains. It's also dubbed infobesity. It's like you're drinking from a fire hose and our brain just cannot follow anymore and we get soaked in information. And it's really time to turn the tide in what way we want to absorb all that information, because it's increasing year after year and our brain is just not equipped to do so. And on top of that, you see that many people have what we call FOMO, fear of missing out. It's become really hard to sit down with someone and have their full attention. Often smartphones are on the table and people are distracted, or people feel a need to not be bored and entertain themselves with the thoughts of other people's and observing them on social media instead of observing their own beautiful mind and get creative, come up with problem solving, and maybe create some true connection with the people that are physically around you.
Elke, sometimes from the just the public polemic, we can feel that it is said that just older people they cannot cope with all the changes, and young generation is different. They can multitask, they can do so many things at the same time. And it's you getting old. It's not, just them being different, but it's you getting old and not keeping up with this tempo. Would you agree with that?
I totally disagree with that. The brain has not significantly changed in 40,000 years. Yeah, we're totally deluded about this fact. A recent study among teens and young adults show that they generally believe that they can follow 6 or 7 channels of information at the same time. But we're not robots. We function like human beings and have a human logic. And it is impossible that in one generation, because that's what we're talking about, the brain would drastically evolve, enabling young people to multitask, do several things at the same time and have a mindset that is totally open for growth. It's not the case. Our brain is quite the same and we're all dealing with certain challenges, but based on the experience that the older people have, of course they will look differently at the world. Maybe have a bit more resistance or denial that something needs to change than the young people. That's true, but our brain is the same.
I'm relieved now. Thank you very much. Okay, so there were 2 tips or 2 main things that you've given to us today.
Yes.
One was focus and unfocus.
Yes. Focus is often called the new IQ. You might be like very smart, but if you're not able to focus on what really matters, what are you with that high IQ nowadays? And in a world where we're living in a lot of distraction, it has become really key to focus. If you want to perform well, if you want to be successful, you have to regain focus. And many people think that they can multitask, but it feels like multitasking, but it is actually switch-tasking, switching back and forth between tasks because, you know, the human brain actually cannot multitask, also not the female brain. It's a myth. And it's time to appreciate the bad consequences of multitasking, such as it costs a lot more time because you have to switch all the time. You make a lot more errors because your brain always has to reconfigure the task that you were working on. Creativity is totally gone because your mind is like chasing all these tasks and has no time to mind wandering and get creative. And also, people who are multitasking remember less well what they've been doing because a lot of the energy is spent on the switching. So